JSA issue 1, Jeff Lemire writing with DIEGO OLORTEGUI on the art. You know, it's still very much set in continuity. It kind of even loosely references the fact that, oh, they've been forgotten about and they've came back. It doesn't get super specific. It doesn't try and explain specific time periods or anything. But it just does a nice recap at the start. Like the first few pages are like, hey, this is what the JSA are. They were before anyone else. They've had a legacy team. And we're at the point now where we've got legacy characters working side by side with the original team, or whoever's left of the original team anyway. Yep. And that's where we are. And it also says, hey, this is after Absolute Power, the Justice League Watchtower's up and running. Obviously, they've got a working relationship with the JSA, or sorry, the Justice League. So it says all this stuff up, but it's got a little tease at the end where it's like, hey, but the JSA were at the start of all this, but they might also be the end of all of it. And there's like blood on the nameplate on the
giant table.
On the table, yeah. So this is all like a pre-credit thing, because then it's the title page. It's like Ragnarok Part 1, and then we get into the story proper, which I had a good fun time with. You know, it starts off with a couple of Cobra members being chased by Obsidian and a couple of other young ones. Wildcat and Jesse specifically, and Jade actually has to show up and tell her brother to maybe stop torturing the Cobra guys. And to be fair, the Cobra guys, so there's two Cobra guys, right? And one of them cracks immediately and starts giving them information, and the second Cobra guy pulls out his gun and shoots him in the head and says traitor, and then tries to kill himself. And so Obsidian's like, okay, I'm going to torture you then to get what information I need. And Jade shows up and says, no, let's not do that. We're heroes. We don't torture people. So
and so like, I know Obsidian can control shadows. I've never seen him make a Slender Man spider character. That was terrifying. Like, the fact that the Cobra guys lasted as long as he did, I was like, holy crap, Obsidian's not playing around.
I really like the build to that, actually, 'cause obviously it's just that one page, but like having like the one guy be more scared and say, did you see that? The shadows were following us. Because as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. I know who you're talking about. I got excited because it was a nice little bit. I think if you've never read a JSA book before, I think this scene does a good job of establishing Obsidian, his temper, but also more importantly, establishing the relationship between him and Jade, his brother and sister. Yes. And then the following meeting scene kind of like adds on that as well. But I think that's a really interesting thing to focus on to sort of get us going. So you've got like a central dynamic that we can sort of revolve the other characters around. But yeah, we see the other characters. You know, Sans there at the meeting, along with the younger Dr. Midnight, and Our Man.
I like that they're calling this Infinity Inc. because that was the first Junior Justice Society, right? Because these are the legacy characters that came out in late 80s, early 90s. So the fact that Lemire's leaning on that as well, because that was a book about Jade and Obsidian and Rick Tyler taking over for Rex and Jesse Quick and all this. So to see all these characters here, and they're like the middle generation, right? Because these are the Star Girls, and I'm trying to think who else came up in the Lost Children, right? They're not that one.
Is this Midnight and Wildcat from the middle generation?
I think so. They're the part of the younger, but I think they're lopping them into the middle generation because they're the next.
Yeah, well, because I specifically associate them with Stargirl more than I do like these other mid-generation characters. Right.
So they're additions to this Infinity Inc. kind of lineup, but I feel like that takes them because there's not like a whole lot of. There's Yolanda Wildcat and there's the Ted Wildcat, right? Ted, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Ted Grant, yeah.
Ted Grant, okay. I was just making sure.
So other plot things that are established in this scene, though, is that the older generation, well, except from Khalid, who's not the older generation, but Dr. Fate's with them, so whatever. The older generation of Jay, Alan, Wildcat, and the Hawks are missing right now. And they don't know where they are, and that's something they're concerned about. And they do mention the young generation, which again isn't really the young generation because it includes Power Girl, Mr. Terrific, and Atom Smasher, who are definitely not and even Black Canary. I mean, to be honest, it's just Stargirl and who's the redhead actually?
Let's see,
because they bring them up on the screen.
Oh, that's what's her name? The Red Tornado Girl. She's a hunkle. What's her name? You keep talking. I'll look this up.
I was expecting you to say something that would immediately click in my head, but it's not.
She's a Jeff Johns creation, and she hasn't been around in a while.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. She came up in around the Lightning Saga when they were redoing the JSA JLA. Why can't I remember her name? But she's a descendant of Ma Hunkel, who was the first Red Tornado. Because her name's Maxine Hunkel. What? It wasn't Twister. Let me look. Anyways.
All right. Anyway. So they're arguing about what to do. Obsidian, of course, wants to go storming around and dealing with stuff and finding where the characters are missing. Wildcat kind of agrees. But the meeting kind of disbands and everyone sort of goes off and everything's kind of gloom. It also sets up another character dynamic here, is that apparently Sand and Jade have got something.
A little thing going on?
Yeah, because he mentions, like, hey, can we talk about that thing that happened right before the other characters disappeared? That thing between us, and she's like, oh, now's not the time. So it kind of like indicates that they've got maybe a romance brewing that's kind of just started. Meanwhile, Jesse Quick is pissed off at Rick for not kind of siding with her and wanting to be proactive. So that's a relationship that's breaking down. So that's fun. The other thing,
I want to know what's going on there more, because they kind of hint to things that happen in Absolute Power, and it must have been in something that I wasn't reading, because I don't remember the stuff that happening between Our Man and Jesse Quick about him just like abandoning her when she had no powers.
Yeah, I don't think I read whatever that was either. But we also find that when the older characters disappeared, Jakeem was there with them, and he wasn't taken, but he was left injured. Although it's kind of mysterious, because Dr. Midnight, young Dr. Midnight that is, she is looking over him, and she's like, he's basically on his deathbed, but there's no like reason for it. There's no physical reason, there's no illness or anything, but he is like just barely hanging on, and it doesn't really make sense. So she's very stressed about that. So I kind of like how this book dropped us into like, oh, something's happened to half the team, and we're kind of like trying to catch up with them after the fact, and we don't really know what's going on. Obviously, we the readers get to get some of it, because we actually cut to where the other characters are next. But it was intriguing to start this way, though. Yeah.
Well, I like how he's grouped these guys together as the Mystery Men, and these are like the first Justice Society members, you know, and then Khalid, of course.
Yeah. So it turns out they're at the Tower of Fate, and there's like a horde of monsters like coming to attack them outside the tower. But so they're looking for an exit. They've got Jay like running through the tower looking for the right door to like to get them out of there. The Hawks are trying to hold off the hordes outside. Khalid's like magically trying to keep them back with a barrier, although he's struggling. And like, I like some of the dialogue here actually, because he's like, oh, so many of these things are in the dark. They're asking for me to let them in, and he's really struggling.
And his eyes are wide, right? And you can see his eyes through the Helm of Fate, which you usually can't. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, just lots of just interesting stuff here. You know, he says that he's starting to feel like he's getting lost, like inside all the magic and all that. And there's this sort of 2-page layout where it's all these magic lines and strands that he's kind of getting mixed up in.
Yeah. And then some shadow entity says, "Let me take your burden."
Yeah.
And so attacks him, and you're like, "Oh my god, what the hell?"
Which is that somehow Obsidian? It may be, given what we learn at the end of the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we've not mentioned it yet, but the twist at the end is that Obsidian is not Obsidian. Where is Obsidian? Who knows? In fact, what if this is the real Obsidian that's trying to help him?
Trying to help them get out.
Yeah,
right?
Because this seems sinister at face value, but what if this is him literally saying, "No, I'll take your burden, I'll help"?
Yeah.
What if this is the real Obsidian trying to help him?
Yes, because he says it's all, but then he also says, "It's all right, child. You don't have to suffer this alone. Let me help you." So yeah, I don't know if that exactly sounds like Todd, but you know, I'm open to it.
Oh, where does he say that?
Right there next to when he says,
"Oh, it's before." Sorry.
Yeah.
He said after. I was like, because the "Let me take your burden" is the last line. I was like, what do you mean?
Gotcha.
But yeah, you're right. It says that first.
Yeah.
So all the monsters are getting through. Khalid seems to have had some kind of episode after this incident. But the big reveal at the end is that who we thought was Obsidian throughout the issue walks through a portal, and then like his outfit like dematerializes, and it's actually Johnny Sorrow. And the
This
final,
guy.
I know, the final page is him with the Injustice Society, the third team in the book, with the various characters around their table, and it's like, oh, like, does anyone suspect you? And he's like, nope. I was like, well, we're just getting started. So, yeah. So we got Copperhead, we got oh god, Grey Ghost, we got
Dr. Element.
Who's the evil version of Sand that I'm seeing here?
That's what I want to know. So I'm wondering if that was from the Venditti, I forget his name, but there was an evil version of Sandman that was running around. Yes, I'm wondering if that's from the LEMIRE book. But yeah, we got Dr. Light, it looks like Scandal Savage, Gentleman Ghost, Dr. Element, Copperhead, whoever this witchy guy is, I don't know who he is, Solomon Grundy, Red Lantern, and then the evil Sandman. So definitely a mixed bag of characters I recognize and I don't. But anytime I can see Johnny Sorrow, I get excited.
Yeah, Johnny Sorrow's got such a fun look to him because he's just this floating mask with the suit. Super interesting. And like I said, it doesn't immediately make me go, oh, where's the real Obsidian then? Like, what happened to him? And are these characters behind the disappearance of the rest of the characters? Probably, but I mean, who knows?
Well, and like what they do to Jakeem, like what they do to the Thunderbolt, right? Where's he at? There's a lot of stuff at play here, and like you said, what if that is Obsidian trying to help we'll call them the Mystery Men, the original JSA. Well, maybe he's trying to help them get out because he's the key to getting out, and he's stuck there as well. You know, I don't know. But yeah, definitely was not expecting an Injustice Society, and let alone Obsidian. So then when you see him, you know, you look back at that shadow, that very creepy Slender Man spider thing, you're just like, oh, that's a Johnny Sorrow specialty right there. You know?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Because I feel like one of the most common things to do in a JSA book is reveal, oh, there's an evil JSA. Like, you know, it's a really normal thing to do in a comic book. But I like how it's done. I like that they've got someone on the inside, and I think that Lemire's using this as a way to kind of like explore who some of the characters in the team are. Like, it's kind of like a roundabout way of doing like a sort of fresh introduction to a lot of them. But it is a little bit risky because you're also doing that thing where you're kind of relying on like how many characters there is, and it can be maybe overwhelming if you've never read a JSA book before and maybe you don't know who a lot. Because unlike other team books and superheroes, a lot of these characters don't really pop up in other things, you know, that much. They tend to be just in JSA books.
Yes, it's mainly just JSA, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, and by the way, that character I couldn't remember, her name's Cyclone.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Cyclone.
Yep. But she had Red Tornadoes type powers. They were the wind type stuff.
All right.
But yeah,
I would never have guessed that in a million years.
Okay, so I'm looking at some of these. So they got Scandal Savage. Oh, Fog is that character, an old enemy of Sandman who wears a black version of his outfit. That's not Copperhead. That's Lady Eve, a high-ranking member of Cobra.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think you can understand why I made that mistake.
Yes, that's not Dr. Light. That's Shadow Thief, who's, you know, one of Hawkman's. So it's a mostly
new version of this team then.
Yeah, and then the Ancient Sorcerer is Wotan. So yeah, a lot of fun. Very, very excited to see where Jeff Lemire takes this, right? Because we know he can write legacy type stuff. We've seen. I mean, I haven't read a lot of Black Hammer, but that's kind of the vibe of Black Hammer, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he approaches anything to the quality of what Black Hammer I've read with this run, then we're in for a special treat. I don't think it's hitting that immediately. I think it's a solid first issue. I like that it's playing on the relationships between the characters. I think one of the things that can happen when you've got too many characters and you're doing this big type of book where you've got a big team of villains and you've got all these things going. I like that this first issue took time to establish 2 or 3 like interpersonal relationships. I think that's so important. Whether it's the brother-sister relationship, even though it's not really the brother and sister as we find out, but even just like playing with that, Jade struggling as the leader of the team, the possible romance between her and Sand, and then also Rick and Jesse Quick. Like, there's just enough in that meeting to get a sense of who each of the characters are that I really hope that they don't skimp in that. I think one of the things that I'm loving about Birds of Prey right now is that it feels like those personal bonds between the teammates are getting a reasonable amount of focus issue to issue, and I hope that this book doesn't skimp in that. And I trust Lemire, but it's been a while since he's been doing an ongoing superhero book, so I'd be curious to see how he does with this as it goes forward.
Yeah, so far I think he's balanced it pretty well, right? Because we get to spend enough time with each of those sets of teams, right, to get the dynamics down. So
and we know he's got the Absolute Flash coming at some point next year, so it seems like for whatever reason he's back on the DC superhero train.
That's good.
I'm down for more of it, for sure. So unsurprisingly, we're down for another issue of this. It's fine to good. Like, I wouldn't say it's exceptional. Olategui's kind of one of those artists that is very much like, he's pretty much standard house style, and I think it's solid. I don't dislike anything, but nothing is spectacular either. Nothing like catches me. Nothing takes my breath away.
No, it feels very Howard Porter-esque too. Like very big, thick lines. The characters are kind of bulky, like in a good way. There's a lot of good movement in them, right? It's like not a lot of, it feels like posed images and whatnot. But like, you're right, like it's perfectly fine, but it's not gonna knock your socks off.
Yeah, it does the job, and that's about it. Anyway, what are you giving JSA?
I'm gonna give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an 8 out of 10. I think it hits that mark. I don't think it goes above that yet, but I do think there's potential here for more once Lemire really gets to start cooking with some of the characters. So, but interesting sort of like plot to drop us into, kind of after it's already started. I think that's an interesting choice that he's made here. They make it feel kind of like it's already hit the ground running in a way.